A beautiful young mom of 3 boys seemingly vanishes into thin air. She didn't vanish. Ana Walshe was murdered. Now, in the last days, we learn a lot. Most significantly, in my mind, and I look at everything through the lens of probative value. What can this piece of evidence prove? How can I use this piece of evidence? What can I extrapolate from this piece of evidence? What can I figure out from this one piece of evidence? Here are 3 things that have come to light regarding Brian Walsh, the husband of Ana Walshe. Number 1, a bone fragment, a tiny fragment of bone, has been found on a hacksaw in a dumpster very near Brian Walsh's mother's place. Let all that sink in. Hacksaw, bone fragment near Brian Walsh's mother's place. Second, can you even imagine Brian Walsh just twisting and turning at the thought his wife may be having an affair? I mean, do you blame her? Number 1. But that said, retreating to mommy's house to talk about his wife and her philandering and her cheating and how bad she is. Whoa, wait a minute. He's the one that has a fraud charge for trying to dupe people out of tens of thousands of dollars on Andy Warhol paintings. And we also learn that Brian Walsh whips his mother into a frenzy and orchestrates mommy hiring a private investigator to find out if Ana Walshe is having an affair. What? He can't pick up the phone and do it himself? He's got to have mommy do his dirty work? I'm just going to throw in another 4th tidbit. Remember all of the horrendous, just sickening Google searches Brian Walsh allegedly made? Like, how long does it take a dead body to start smelling? How do you stop a dead body from smelling? Can you pour baking soda on it? What's the very best way to get rid of a body, if you have to? How do you dismember a body? That's on a search. Critical point, that was conducted on his son's tablet, his son's iPad. Remember, his 3 sons are 2, 4, and 6. Wow. Wonder which one of them was looking up how to dismember a body or get rid of a body if you really need to. I love that phrase at the end. If you really need to. How to get rid of a body really quickly. And I'm just seeing the theme running through this about mommy. In court, whenever a defendant who, of course, I wouldn't want the defendant to be out on bond, but some other judge and some other prosecutor let somebody out on bond, whenever they wouldn't show up to court, I would say, hey, go straight to his mommy's house. He's hiding under the bed. Just go ask her. She'll know where he is. Let's talk about this mommy complex that Brian Walsh apparently had. Joining me right now is renowned psychoanalyst out of Beverly Hills. Wow. I mean, her clients, they're all worried about where they're going to shop next on Rodeo Drive. But that said, I guess rich people can hurt too. Dr. Bethany Marshall, I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm just going to throw the ball in your court. Hit it.
Well, Nancy, the one thing that stands out above all is how parasitic Brian Walsh is. He was parasitic with his own father. Remember, his father, as he lay dying, the father told his best friend that he didn't want his son to inherit anything. He knew his son was a con artist, a fraudster, and a ne'er-do-well. Nonetheless, when the father lay dying, Brian Walsh went to his father's house and tried to forge his signature on a new will. So Brian Walsh was not above conning and taking money away from his own family members. And I think he was probably in some ways targeting his own mother, his only ally left in the world, as you said, sitting around the kitchen table, fomenting this plan to kill his wife. So what happens with people like Brian Walsh is they live in a paranoid world. They think everything is being done to them.
Dr. Bethany, hold on just a moment.
Yes.
As brilliant as you are, I'm going to help you, since you didn't ask. I'm going to help you marshal your thoughts. It reminds me at the end of a really big trial, I would have to marshal the evidence and figure out what evidence proves which point. And to help me marshal, I would make a giant poster regarding each point and then number all the evidence that proved that point. I want to talk to you first about the father, seemingly unrelated, but you know, one of my favorite sayings, when you don't know a horse, look at his track record. So you've got the beginnings of fraud that we know of, forging the father's signature so he could get tens of thousands of dollars, frauding on his own dad. You know what I would give if I could have my dad back just one day? Just one day. And here he is doing nothing but trying to steal the money from his dad. What about his mom? Shouldn't she have gotten the money? I mean, I'm not a probate lawyer, wills and estates, but that's basically taking from his mother, brother, or sister, grandchildren to try to get all the money from dad. Okay, wait. Let's follow this through to the logical conclusion. Then we already know he's on house arrest for fraudulent Warhol paintings. He had a whole elaborate scam with these Warhol paintings, conning people out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's been proven. So here he is on house arrest. He can't leave the house. You think he's cleaning up or cooking dinner? OHELLNO. His wife is doing all the work, bringing in all the money, dealing with his sorry rear end at home all day in his PJs. He's not even cooking a chicken pot pie. No, that's not happening. Parasite with a history of fraud.
That's right.
Oh, okay. So my point is fraud, and now he knows she has nearly $3 million, 2.7 to be exact, $1 million life insurance, and here's his next fraud. Fraud. Money.
That's it.
Can we talk about that? That's the motive here.
So I think this is interesting because as he's sitting at his mother's kitchen table, encouraging her or coercing her to get a PI saying, you know, my wife's having an affair. I think you need to tailor around
She's
DC.
such the big hoe. Oh, I can just see him.
That's right.
Whipping his mother up, and, you know, the boys are at home and they're probably upstairs in the bedroom, blah, 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 just getting his mother beside herself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So he's manipulating his own mother into, of course, paying for something for him because he probably has no independent money of his own at this point. He's brainwashing his mother into believing that her own daughter-in-law is abandoning the family. And he is grooming his own mother to separate his children from their mother. I mean, that's really one of the most heinous parts of all of this is he already knows that he is going to murder her, I believe. So he's potentially leaving these little boys without a mother. He's talking to these little girls, these little boys' grandmother about this. What do you think the grandmother would have really thought if she knew that this was the MO all along? So I think that what Brian Walsh does is he manipulates whoever's closest to him, like whoever the low-hanging fruit is, and he creates a narrative, as you said, like she's such a hoe, like she's, gallivanting around DC looking for affairs, whereas we know, in fact, one of the primary reasons that women do not leave abusive relationships is that they are terrified that they cannot survive financially out there on their own, and she may well have been trying to build a life away from him in order to leave him, but I'm sure he was acutely aware of that. And you know what happens? once she leaves the marriage, once she files for the divorce, the life insurance policy is no longer named as him with the beneficiary. It moves to whoever she chooses at that point. So you have multiple motivations here.
You know, I'm thinking about this commonality, the common theme of Mommy in this case. He dumps, we believe, a hacksaw with Ana Walsh's bone fragment on it in the mother, his mother's dumpster outside of her condo. He goes to her house to sit at the kitchen table, and I can just imagine him. We learned that he repeatedly and obsessively would look up the perceived boyfriend's Insta and other social media multiple times a day, just looking at pictures of the guy, which is a whole nother legal kettle of fish. Psychoanalytical kettle of fish for you to figure out the obsessive staring at the potential lover. Then, remember, he uses his mom as somewhat of an alibi. He said he got lost on the way to his mother's home right after the murder and took some circuitous route, which happens to be near a lot of dumpsters, a la Fotis Delos, and has his mother hire the PI, private investigator, to snoop on his wife. That's a lot of mommy complex going on right there.
You know, Nancy, it is, but we know when you look through the lens of domestic violence and also just personality disorders in general, how they behave in the world, they usually find somebody to support their point of view. And the more disturbed, the more pathological they are, the more they try to brainwash the other person into seeing the world from their point of view. So in this case, as Brian Walsh is looking through his wife's Instagram, you know, we're assuming that he's staring at pictures of the other guy because he's jealous. I don't think so. I think he's trying to figure out where Ana Walsh is, where is she staying, where, you know, who is she hanging out with, because already he has hatched a plan to get rid of her. So, you know, while he's staring at the Instagram trying to figure out her tracks, and he's, you know, brainwashing his mother into coming up with money to hire a PI, you see the mother's being drawn more and more and more into his web. The mother may be the only person in his life who has money, who's willing to make any of it available to him at this point. He's probably lost everybody else. And, you know, what I think is interesting, again, he's turning his mother against the mother's daughter-in-law. He's separating and dividing the family. So it tells me just how callous and ruthless he is, because the people who are ultimately going to pay the price in all of this is those little boys who are no longer going to have a mother. Can you imagine what Brian Walsh's mother would have really thought had she known all of this? I mean, hopefully she's recovered her senses at this point.
What about this? The damning Google searches were conducted on his little boys, ages 2, 4, and 6, iPad, their tablet, instead of his own. He knows, having been through a federal prosecution already for the art fraud, he knows that they would look at his iPad, but they probably wouldn't look at the iPad of a 4-year-old little boy.
But see, this is what's interesting about Brian Walsh. As you said earlier, he leaves a trail of clues a mile wide. From the beginning, from forging something at his father's house, forging a new will, trying to sell fake Andy Warhols. You know, he didn't pick obscure art. He picked art that the whole world knows about. Going and buying cleaning supplies at a type of retail store where likely there were cameras everywhere, dumping in a dumpster near his mother's home. See, this is a guy who never thinks anybody's looking at him in any kind of observing or watchful way. And it makes me think about what we know about sociopaths, that when you subject them to brain scans, fMRIs, the part of the brain that is responsible for being, you know, anxious, being anxious, afraid of getting caught, that part just simply doesn't light up. They really don't think they're doing anything wrong. They don't think they're going to get caught. They really, that is just not on their mind. So it could be that he grabbed his son's iPad, because he thought he was covering up, not even really thinking that all iPads are going to be searched in that household.
Just extremely arrogant that cops can't figure that out or search all of the iPads or tablets in the home. But again, you see him using family members in the most horrific way, even his little child. I'm trying to think about, of course, there's a life insurance motivation to commit murder, but also anger over his wife having an affair. And it sounds like it wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just a one-time romp at a local motel. She apparently flew to Dublin to spend a holiday with him, spent, I guess it was Christmas Eve with the boyfriend, had planned a post-New Year's Eve get-together. What would that, of course, I think it's all about money, but how would that factor in to Brian Walsh murdering Ana Walsh? Well, the state does not have to prove motive, but as a practical matter, I like to give it to a jury anyway, if I can figure it out.
Well, we all want to know about motivation all the time. Yeah. I mean, homicide is terrible, and there has to be some motive, and often beyond money. Although, as you've said frequently on your show, you've seen people murder as over as little as $1, a couple of dollars. So sometimes money is the primary motivator, no matter how small. It could be that in her private conversations with Brian, she told him she was going to leave. He characterized it as an affair, and the media is characterizing it as an affair. But it could be that she was already saying to him, I no longer want to be in this relationship. Because when you have an affair, you don't fly all the way to Dublin on Thanksgiving when you have little children, because affairs are hidden, right? We hide affairs. We hide things we don't want other people to know about. This was a very bold, overt plan. You have to buy plane tickets. You're taking pictures and putting them on Instagram from another place. I think she told him she was going to start a new life. And I think that what happened was, and my favorite quote from Reed Malloy about sociopaths is that they relate to others on the basis of power, not affection. So rather than, being able to see that maybe she wants her own life, maybe she's not happy in this family anymore, maybe she wants to separate, he sees it differently. He sees that the control is slipping, and that is intolerable, because he has had control of her from the very beginning, and control in multiple ways, not just controlling her mind, but now that he's under house arrest and he has an ankle monitor, she's the sole breadwinner for the family. So he's controlling her financially, he's controlling her psychologically, he's controlling her every move, he's cyber-stalking her. So she is drifting further and further away from him. And so not only are the proceeds of the life insurance policy potentially drifting further and further away from him, but she is psychologically.
Have you ever seen defendants go out and have a really big meal, or stop at Waffle House or Burger King? Because I have. And I'm always amazed that after you murder someone, you still have an appetite. Because Brian Walsh went to the Press Juice Bar in Norwell right after we believe he murdered his wife. I mean, there's nothing that screams fresh juice than dismembering your wife. I guess you're thirsty after that.
There's some very interesting research into this, that the subject of this research was people who had committed homicide and how they felt and how they behaved in the months following the homicide. And generally, if it was a loved one, a family member, a spouse, there was what was called a relief phase that lasted 8 to 9 months after the commission of the crime. And so what that told the architects of this study was that the person who kills a spouse is in fact in their own mind tortured by the presence of that spouse on this planet. They feel that spouse is harming them, hurting them, causing them angst and anxiety, perhaps simply because that spouse wants to go and live a free life. So they're caught in what we call persecutory distress. So when they finally kill that person, they are really relieved. That's why Casey Anthony danced on a stripper pole, right? That's why Scott Peterson, what did he do? I mean, he was having multiple affairs. He went back to the mistress. I mean, we could go, to, defendant after defendant who did go eat a big meal, did go take a vacation. They were having the time of their life.
Okay, I thought you were going to explain to me what gets your appetite in high gear after you commit a murder.
Right. Well, they're happy that the other person is gone, so it's a celebratory meal. They're celebrating.
So, I mean, I've actually had a group of guys that committed a murder drive through, I guess it was a Burger King, and they're actually fighting and arguing about what their order is going to be, and they have this huge, gigantic, humongous order, and they have just gotten rid of a body. And I always find it's like they're celebrating.
They're celebrating. I was just thinking about when, John David or Lucy has a big success in their life. What do?
Order crystals and Krispy Kremes. Is that wrong?
Exactly.
Crystal cheese, no pickle, and 2 dozen Krispy Kremes. That's John David's go-to order when we're celebrating something.
Because you're celebrating because something positive essentially happened. And that's the warped world that these homicidal individuals live in, is that they are actually celebrating that person's departure from this earth, or in the case of maybe gangs, it's a group celebration that they had a victory over another gang. But whatever it is, it's a celebratory moment. That's why the whole thing about crime of passion, the person was in a rage, they just, they lost control in that minute, is never credible to me from a psychoanalytic perspective. These crimes get planned for months or years, even if only at an unconscious level before they become conscious, and then they get formulated into a plan. And then when the person develops the courage to do it, they are high on life, Nancy, after this happens.
So you have to get fast food. Question to you. I always say, idiots. They're all idiots. When people leave a trail a mile wide following a murder, such as in this case, Brian Walsh going and buying cleaning supplies, a hatchet, a hacksaw, I'm sure a tarp. Somebody's always buying a tarp. But are they that much of an idiot? Because some of these defendants are not at all an idiot. But are they that arrogant that they think they can outsmart cops? Cops won't go and look at Walmart or Target or Home Depot or Lowe's at the surveillance video to figure out who bought this tarp?
Well, Nancy, they have a history of thinking they're not going to be caught. And in particular, Brian Walsh never thought that he was going to be caught. And in this moment, didn't he still have his ankle monitor on? I mean, what about the ankle monitor when he went into the Home Depot? I just thought about that. Where was the ankle monitor when he bought all the cleaning supplies? Wasn't that tracking him as well? I don't know if he still had it on, but anyway,
how can they be that arrogant? What piece of the brain or the psyche is that? I mean, there's a video camera right there.
The only person, a researcher, who has ever really explained it to any satisfaction in my mind is Reed Malloy, who in his research says that these guys are born without the anxiety that you and I experience. If I get a letter from the IRS, even if I know I paid my taxes, I'm anxious.
Please don't say that. That's getting me anxious just hearing it.
Right? Or you don't see a child darts into the street and you slam on the brakes.
But what does that mean? Why
what it means?
Do they not care? Do they not realize they're on video? They have to know.
Well, what we're learning about these sociopaths is that they are different biologically than you and I are. They are born without anxiety. Little kids are very anxious. If they think their mother's going to be mad at them, they'll be, I'm sorry, Mommy, I'm sorry, Mommy. But these sociopaths when they do something wrong and the mother gets mad at them, they really don't care. And when we're growing up, it's really repeated instances of doing sort of naughty things, and our mother's getting mad at us, and then we'll be afraid of mother withdrawing her love, so then we'll cling to mom and, try to do right better the next time. And, these repeated interactions between us and our mothers cause the conscience to form. But if you're born without anxiety, it plays such a crucial role in the formation of the conscience. And if you're born without anxiety, that conscience
You
simply
just
does
reminded
not
me of something,
form.
Dr. Bethany. Yesterday morning, okay, Lucy, as I've told you, wants to make her own beautiful organic breakfast. It's like something you would see on Insta. Every morning it's beautiful. And she sits there and very thoughtfully and intentionally eats her breakfast. Okay. John David is like on a wing and a prayer. He wakes up 15 minutes before we have to leave for school. And I'm getting to the punch line here. I make him homemade, organic, almond milk and frozen banana and Nutella. I don't want you to think I'm too healthy. Shakes. And they're really big to fill him up. Okay. Yesterday morning, my beautiful little baby, my little China doll, Lucy, went into the fridge to get whatever she's going to make her extravaganza breakfast. And she knocks over one of these giant shakes I have, and it goes all over her. She's all dressed for school and on a little bit onto the floor. And I looked at her and she didn't say, "Oh no, I'm a big mess. Look what, I gotta go change." Her first words were, "Oh Mom, I'm so sorry." She was really worried that I would be upset. I said, "Lucy, honey, don't be. It's literally spilled milk." True, oat milk, but spilled milk. Go get yourself cleaned up. I'll fix this. But her first concern was, "Oh Mommy, I'm so sorry I did that."
It wasn't for herself.
Yeah.
She wasn't concerned about her outfit.
She was totally
She wasn't like,
covered.
"Oh, darn it." She is concerned that you
This guy
are
is not concerned about
negatively
anything,
affected.
Dr. Bethany. He doesn't
Nobody.
even care that a camera is right there looking right at him, buying cleaning supplies and tarps and hacksaws and hatchets. It's just incredible. And he's not an idiot. He's highly intelligent.
Or that the dumpster is near his mother's house. I mean, don't you think that you would drive for hours and hours and dump the body somewhere else?
He probably did that because he was on that ankle
monitor.
monitor and he was allowed to go see his mom. But then he did get off route, remember, and when he got lost going to his mom's house. So he could have dumped that anywhere. But yeah, just complete arrogance. Dr. Bethany, I love hearing you pick apart these cases and what each clue proves. We wait as justice unfolds in the murder of Ana Walshe. No body yet, no body. But I'm not willing to give him a gold star, an A for effort, for getting rid of the evidence. Goodbye. Guys, thank you for watching Crime Online with Nancy Grace here on YouTube. To get the very latest, subscribe to Crime Online here